Simon, Gareth Southgate announced his England squad for the upcoming World Cup qualifiers. Before we get into this, a couple of omissions that caught the eye. Jadon Sancho not in it. Jesse Lingard not in it. Left out. Now, Lothar Matthäus, hugely respected former German international, very interesting quote from him. He says he believes it was a mistake for Sancho to leave Dortmund, claiming maybe he has more money now, but he has less minutes on the pitch. Now, that, you would think, plays a big part in Southgate's thinking around this one. Yeah. Let's get into it. Southgate explained why both Sancho and Lingard failed to make the cut. Here he is.
I've spoken with both Jesse and Jadon. I think they understand they've had very little football in the last month. And although there are occasions where we pick players who've had not a lot of football because we think the level of competition in their position isn't so high, with these two guys, to leave somebody out that's in this squad for them when they've had hardly any football is very difficult. It's hard to assess, Jesse in particular, what sort of form he might be in, what his physical level might be, and to expect them to be able to come in and really hit a high level with us if the background of minutes in the last month is so low. So there will be times where we take a chance on that, but we felt that at this moment with these two boys, the other players that we've picked are match fit, ready, and that's the call we decided to make.
I just wonder, Simon, how Lingard is feeling. I wonder how Sancho is feeling this Friday morning, because they were both regulars at their former clubs. Lingard on loan at West Ham, but we saw what he did. Sancho pulling up trees at Dortmund, playing alongside Erling Haaland, and we saw what they did. Now, in doing what they've done, especially Sancho by going to United, and in view of Matthäus's comments, has he been wrong to see his career being taken in that direction? Should he have stayed put? Game time.
Look, I mean, playing for Manchester United is a far bigger opportunity than playing for Borussia Dortmund in terms of the statures of the clubs.
Yeah, but he's not playing for them.
Well, yeah, but I'll get onto that in a second. Playing in the Premier League gives him far more of a compelling proposition than playing in the Bundesliga if you're a top player. So he believes he's a top player. He believes he's, one of the best players around. Man United pursued him for 2 seasons, paid £75 million for him. The reasons why he's not in Manchester United's team, I suspect he can answer that question himself, because clearly, evidently, he's not showing enough to the manager to put him in that side. So if he's got anything about him, and Martin can speak to this far better than I can, he will be looking at himself saying, right, how do I fix this problem? These are the consequences of me not doing enough to convince a manager that chased me for 2 years, that wanted me relentlessly in preference to other people, that's paid top money for me, and yet I'm not getting in his side.
I think Matthäus is a little bit out of order, though. Really,
I do too.
Because really, what's happened with this young man is he was at Man City, wasn't he? And he didn't look like there was a journey into the first team. So off he went to Dortmund, got in the first team at a very young age. We all looked and admired that for such a long time. He then felt, okay, the time was right to come back to Manchester United, and it's gone wrong for him. And I watch him play. He's got immense talent. There's no doubt about that. But there is not that feeling of there's no time to lose. You've got to want to make your mark at a football club, make things happen. It's coming slowly, but not quick enough. They've had to make changes, Manchester United. He's been victim to that. They're now playing with a back three, which doesn't include him. Southgate's absolutely right to not involve him. And Lingard's exactly the same. I would say, though, that Rashford's not played a great deal of football either and does find himself in the squad. So, but there'd be a rationale for that too. Maybe he just believes...
Played the last 3 games, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he believes that Rashford is maybe more suited.
I was just going to suggest, though, Martin, that surely Lothar Matthäus is qualified to say what he said, because he got his big move to Inter Milan at the same time as Klinsmann, and yet still featured in the German side because he could hit the mark.
It's just sour grapes, because, the Dortmund team or German league are looking at it thinking they've lost one of their very good players. And it's interesting listening to people from Dortmund saying, look, they would have taken that money, give us the player back any day. We didn't want the money for him. He's such an outstanding player, and they just feel they want to see him play, and he's not playing football at the moment. But he obviously felt the time was right, Sancho, to go back to England, to play for Manchester United. But up to now, I think he's done everything right in his career. He just can't make that next step into the Manchester. Now, that's up to Solskjaer to make that work for him. And the player, Jim, has got to really take the opportunity. I don't think he's done that up to now.
Southgate was interesting yesterday because he's addressed questions around some of the England players being perceived as, if you like, snubbing the international team. This was him on Mason Greenwood's situation.
we had a good chat with him ahead of September, and I think I went through this in quite a bit of detail last month, that he felt he needed to establish himself with his club and focus on that, which is in many ways quite a mature attitude, to recognise that nothing happens at international level unless you're secured in the club environment and playing well. So we obviously felt he's capable of playing at the level, and we were definitely interested in selecting him. But we also want a player that's going to be a good player for England for a long time, and not just for, a couple of months. So with any young player, we want to get that rate of development and progress right. And let's see where he is in March and see how his form is. He's obviously got huge competition for places at his club, but he's had a super start to his career with Manchester United in particular. And we do believe he's a player that can be an England player in the future.
You see, this is where you and I don't see eye to eye on certain things. I'm sitting here thinking, do you know what? I totally get it, what Southgate's saying. And he's meticulous in when he brings somebody through, because the moment's the important thing. And then if that player can show what he wants, he stays in the squad. So it adds up to me. You're sitting shaking your head.
No, because Southgate didn't make the choice. The player told him he doesn't want to be included in the international setup because he wants to go away and develop his domestic career. And Southgate's saying, well, of course, that's right. But Southgate was suggesting he was going to pick him irrespective of his domestic career, and then contradicts himself by saying, of course, you develop yourself as an international player by what you do at domestic level. But he didn't make that choice. The player told him, I won't make myself available internationally because I want to focus on my domestic career. And of course, if he focused on his domestic career and then get picked by Manchester United, you would expect him not to be picked by England. But Southgate seems to be suggesting that irrespective of what he did at Manchester United, he was going to pick him. And the player, it seems to be the tail wagging the dog.
Do you see that, Martin? Mixed messages from Southgate?
Well, it's kind of part of a new approach. It's a dangerous approach because you don't want the players deciding when they play for England. That has to be the manager. I personally wouldn't feel secure enough to pass up the opportunity to play for my country. I would want to go and embrace it and see it as a part of the learning process. I wouldn't expect to go straight into the team, but be in and around it. We've now got Hudson-Odoi as well, who's now pulled out of the under-21s because he doesn't feel that's a part of his development. Yeah. When I'm not sure, again, that's right. And you wonder then, if you do it for one player, does it affect the decision-making of others? So it's a difficult precedent to set. But clearly he's spoken to the player, he's spoken to his family, and there may be mitigating circumstances as to why he wants to handle it this way. Gareth Southgate's the only one who has all that knowledge. We do know that Greenwood is a tremendous talent and he has to be protected, but at the same time, he shouldn't really be treated any differently to anyone else.
I'm glad you brought up Hudson-Odoi, because this is one I can't get my head around. Southgate addressed this as well, and on Hudson-Odoi, he spoke about the player choosing to reject the call-up for England's under-21s.
It is difficult if you're a young player, you've been with the senior team. He went back and played with the under-21s in the last cycle. And then to go again a second cycle, I could understand is a difficult challenge. So we would still like him to do that, but he wants to back himself with his Chelsea form to get back into the seniors, and I totally respect that. So by not being in the under-21s, he misses a bit of an opportunity to impress us and to be able to come across if we need players for training and those sorts of things. He's had a couple of good matches for Chelsea. I know Thomas is guarded about how much he goes with the praise on that, but it's good to see him back playing and playing, more regularly at first team level. And he knows the challenge that's ahead, but he knows also that we're constantly watching him, and he's young enough to be, and talented enough to mount a serious challenge as we move forward.
See, I think Southgate's fair in that, Simon. But again, you're not having this, because what he is saying is, by snubbing the under-21s, he's knocking himself out of the picture.
I mean, I think, don't get me wrong, I think Gareth Southgate is a very eloquent and articulate football manager who operates in a very statesmanlike way and has done a great job of bringing the England team closer to the media and subsequently closer to the fans. But when I look at players, I mean, it worked very well for David Bentley, didn't it? When he turned around saying he didn't want to play for the 21s. This feels to me that Gareth Southgate sometimes wants to be everything to everyone. And unfortunately, in a position of authority, you can't be. You will decide When he was a 21s manager, I'm sure he wouldn't have been as relaxed about the situation when a player decides he doesn't want to play for the 21s. I think he might have had a different attitude towards it entirely. But you, as the England manager and the under-21 manager, will decide which framework that player goes into and when he's ready to go into the next framework. And if someone's fool enough to tell that they don't think that that's right, then they must be prepared to suffer the consequences for that, because it exhibits a certain disposition and attitude that isn't becoming of a player. We all understand that players have a right to express their views. We all have a right to say that players are intelligent enough to understand where they think they really are. But when you're coming to being selected for, that's okay at domestic level. When you're playing for your country, it becomes a different dynamic. And I just think that there's an element of ill-advisedness about the stance that Callum Hudson-Odoi is taken.
100%. But I can detect in Gareth Southgate's voice that it's going to go against Hudson-Odoi.
Did you?
100%.
Okay.
It's going to go against him. He's making it more difficult for himself to get back. He's only just got in the Chelsea team. And
but is Hudson-Odoi not backing himself longer term to do a better and bigger job for England?
I think it's about him towing the line. I think
Absolutely.
It's about this is an amazing opportunity for him to maybe have got back into the 21s. I know he doesn't see it. That's an ego issue, isn't it? When you have to take, we all have to take.
There's one of the listeners, Cal. Look, Hudson-Odoi's right. He needs proper football for his own level. Under 21's too far below his capabilities.
Well, you could say that. You could say that about some of the others that are in there. Gallagher's been brilliant this season. Does well for England. You've got Smith Rowe, who's got a case that he should be in the full England team. For what? Why has he been overlooked? I don't really know. But it's nice to have that conveyor belt. But actually, Gareth Southgate now is picking from more English players in the Premier League. We've got 41% of the players now are English. So the pool of players to pick from is way bigger. So the likes of Hudson-Odoi, they might not get chances again if they don't want to pick up the pieces with the 21s, because he's building his international career. He's doing it under the umbrella of Southgate, and now he's turned his back on it. He's only going to make it more difficult for himself in the future.
Playing for England, everything for you. Was that the ultimate? I mean, I know pulling on the Arsenal jersey was pretty
it's an
damn
honour.
good.
It's an absolute honour, and then to captain my country, which I managed to do once, was probably even bigger because of the responsibility that comes with it. But yeah, playing at Wembley in an England game was a big deal.
I'll bet. It's Jim, Martin and Simon. We're live on talkSPORT.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.